My wife and I fell deeply in love with one another the moment we met, and we both knew we were meant to be together practically immediately. After my wife became pregnant while we were still dating, we decided marriage was the appropriate course of action. During the first 5 years of our partnership, everything felt natural. We had a child together that we both cherished, and we were contentedly married. She stayed at home and looked after our child, and I had a terrific career. I was told that she was already engaged to another man before we started dating. A few weeks before to my meeting her, she ended her relationship with him. She informed me she didn't want to be with him because it just didn't feel right. She moved out of his home after breaking up with him. She met me at a pub when she went out with her best friend after that. I've always believed that the timing was ideal. I believed it to be destiny. We would never have been together, and I would not have enjoyed the ideal life that I did if she hadn't cut things off with that guy. My job required me to travel frequently, which was never a problem with us. I would be gone from home 2 or 3 days a month at most, and they would always be on weekdays. I made it clear to my employer that I wanted to be able to spend the weekends creating memories with my family. I was on a little business trip when I first realized something wasn't right. I was scheduled to travel to Montana for a client meeting, but they had to postpone it until the last minute because of a family issue. I made the decision to spend the additional time surprising my family with a beach getaway for the weekend. I called my wife as soon as I landed at the airport, after boarding the following flight back home. When I called her the first several times, she didn't pick up. She would usually be on her phone, so it was quite unusual of her to not respond. She finally decided to pick up the phone to find out what was going on. I called her, and it seemed to annoy her. That tone was something she hardly ever used with me, especially when I was out of town. She sort of snapped at me to tell me that everything was fine when I inquired if it was. She looked astonished when I told her that I was on my way home in a new burr. I thought she was moving around since I heard a lot of shuffling in the background. I never believed that anything unusual was taking place. She was really unkempt when I got home after our phone conversation. She was wearing pajama shorts and an inside-out sweatshirt, and although her cheeks were pink, she had been racing around. Although I was aware that spending time by myself with the child could be draining at times, it didn't appear to be the problem. She assured me that everything was fine when I asked whether it was. She was just taken aback by my early arrival. When I told her that I wanted to spend the weekend at the beach, she hurried off to pack so that we could get out early the next day. It seemed a relief to her to be free of me. When I went to pack some clothes for the trip after unpacking my work belongings, I discovered a black sock that I didn't think belonged to me. I asked my wife what it was as I took it up and showed her. Finding it was a suspicious thing, she insisted that the sock belonged to her, but she wasn't sure what I was asking for. She was the one who took care of the entire lawn of the house, I won't lie. She was probably more familiar with my clothing than I was, having purchased several of my items. She insisted that it was mine, even after I informed her that I didn't think it was. I quit up eventually and took her word for it. I assumed she would have more knowledge about it than I did. I didn't notice anything else happening for a few months. The sock had entirely escaped my memory. One day, I arrived home early from work to find my wife sobbing in her bathtub. She was crying while hiding in the bathtub, all clothed, and there was no water in the tub. I hurried over to her right away to find out what was going on and to make sure she was okay. She couldn't express what was occurring to me because she was essentially nonverbal. I hurried around the home to make sure our kids were okay since I was freaking out. When I asked her mother over the phone, she was also unaware of the situation. My initial thought was that someone had passed away, but after talking to her mother, the one who was most likely to cause her to have that reaction, I began to suspect something different. To be sure no one had broken into the house, I looked through our Ring camera footage, but I couldn't discover anything. All I could do was glance at her phone to see if there was any indication of what was happening. My wife was crying uncontrollably, and I needed to find out what was wrong. so I could help her, so I wasn't trying to catch her in anything. I went up to her in the bathtub and took it from her hands. She had it with her. She struggled a little bit to give it to me. When I opened it, I saw that her and a man, we'll call Tim, were exchanging messages on the screen. They were expressing their love, missing each other, and excitement to be together when I went away the following week, in all of their very romantic texts to each other. My spouse was sobbing uncontrollably in the bathroom, and I was devastated to witness it. I had no idea what to do. However, I'd recently discovered that she was unfaithful to me. Their text didn't conclude with a breakup or anything similar, so that didn't even explain why she was crying the way that she was. A note from her closest friend Carol arrived as I was examining it. Despite not having seen the message, I called her immediately to find out if she was aware of what was happening. I told her I knew everything there was to know about Tim. I just wanted to figure out why my wife was crying in the tub. Tim used to be my wife's ex-fiancé, Carol told me. They were getting back in touch and going out together. My wife was crying since Tim was no longer with us. I was experiencing a wide range of feelings at the moment, and I can't even begin to articulate them. Despite my anger and heartbreak over the affair, I still had compassion for my wife because I truly did love her. However, I was so enraged with her that I wanted to both help her and go as far away from her as I could. I informed Carol that I didn't think I could take care of my wife and that she needed to come over. My wife cried out for me to come back and be with her as soon as I left the restroom. We were going to spend a few days at my parents' place, so I prepared a bag for the kids. My wife didn't need them around her at her time of grief. It would probably be quite encouraging for them. I left when Carol came over. Before I could go, she attempted to explain what was going on, but I wasn't interested in listening to her. Although we didn't get along well, Carol was my wife's best friend. Carol and I used to joke around, and I frequently invited her to join us for dinner and drinks. She even lied to me about the affair, and I felt betrayed by it. When we were at my parents' place, I told them everything, and they gave me some excellent advice on the subject. They informed me that she had already chosen for me to walk away from her, which made me feel horrible about my choice. I knew she was in grief, but I was unable to be with her. I had no choice but to leave her after she betrayed our marriage. She was free to choose, and I had no say over her feelings towards me after she injured me. I left her alone at home for the weekend to finish what she needed to. She pleaded for an opportunity to talk to me and work through the issues when I came back the next week to get some of my possessions. I told her there was no way she could justify telling another man she loved him and that they were having sex. But behind my back, I did discover that when we first met, she was still engaged to her partner. Before she ended our relationship, we had been dating for a full month. They broke up after he found out about me, even though I was only meant to be a flame. It's unclear whether she believed that would improve things, but it most definitely didn't. At that moment, I realized she had lied to me all the time during our marriage. I informed her that I was going to be leaving her and that I would not be changing my decision. Although I was aware of her ongoing mental turmoil following Tim's passing, I had no anxiety about it. As I began the process of filing for divorce, a lot of people from my past tried to paint me in a negative light. My spouse had been telling everyone that I abandoned her as soon as she learned someone close to her had passed away. She was hiding the fact that she had learned the man she had been having an affair with had passed away. I took careful to let everyone who contacted me know the truth by making that clear. I refused to allow her fabricate a story about me that would lead everyone we knew to believe I was a terrible man. She lost a lot of friends in our town after that, as everyone saw how manipulative she could be, from what I've been told. Carol was the only other person who knew about the affair when it was going on and the only one who remained by her side. In the end, I was awarded the house and all of our possessions when we divorced. She moved in with her parents and visits our child on the weekends. Let's go on to the second tale now. In our junior year of college, my girlfriend and I got to know one another. Since our school was small, it was difficult to avoid noticing everyone there. I had occasionally seen her around and found her to be pretty. I never had a good cause, though, to go talk to her. When our junior year started, we were enrolled in the same writing class. I sat down next to her and started talking as soon as I saw her. In the end, we got along well and worked through a lot of material for the lesson. I started seeing her a few weeks into the semester, and she appeared happy that I did. We weren't used to traveling great distances, so our first summer apart was challenging. We weren't able to visit each other very often because we lived around 4 hours apart. We ended up making a few visits to each other to hang out during the summer because we chatted every day. We were overjoyed to be back together when our senior year's fall semester got underway. We were having a terrific time together. I may have been a little blind to some things at first, as I didn't see anything unusual happening between us. Looking back, I can see that she was using her course load as an excuse to spend less time with me. Upon perusing her calendar at the start of the semester, I saw that she was taking comparatively few classes. Although she only worked part-time, she had a job. If she just didn't want to, there was definitely time for her to spend more time with me or go on additional dates. She would always have her phone out when we were together, and she was frequently very private about her usage of it. That was the way things went until the spring semester. I had mentioned my feelings to her a few times, but each time she reassured me that she was simply busy or stressed out and that she wanted to be with me. I emailed her one evening asking if I could spend the night in her room instead. I just wanted to spend time with my girlfriend on a Friday night, knowing that she didn't have to work the next morning. After responding for a few minutes, she informed me that she was going to bed, and that she had a migraine from staring at a computer for too long. While perusing Instagram, I noticed a notification indicating my girlfriend was online. She informed me she was going to bed because she had a headache from staring at a screen all day. Because she was scrolling through Instagram, I assumed that she was lying to me and that she simply didn't want to spend time with me. Although coming to that realization hurt, I believe it was something I needed. My roommate inquired about the situation since I was feeling a little off about it. After I told him everything, he said it seemed like she was already over the relationship. Then he remarked nonchalantly that she was probably on to someone else already. Although I didn't immediately recognize the connection, he urged me to investigate. I didn't really give it much thought at first, but after giving his words some thought over the course of a few days, I concluded that it would be worthwhile to investigate. She was sneaky about using her phone a lot and didn't want to spend a lot of time with me. The possibility that she was concealing anything from me made logic. I assessed my relationship in light of the hints I found online on how to spot infidelity in relationships. I made a mental note of her Snap score if she was still online after telling me she was going to bed, and the frequency with which she was declining my requests to go on dates or spend time with her. All the evidence I could find suggested that she might be seeing someone else. We decided to attend a concert together one weekend. All of the tickets were purchased by me. She abruptly canceled, telling me that she had to go to work. It felt like a lie to me right away because she never worked on Saturdays. I assured her that I would be okay with it, and that I would instead be going to the concert with my roommate. After I informed him what had happened, he began to assume that she had canceled to go see another man. I allowed him to persuade me of that, and I was feeling quite agitated and worried about everything. While traveling to the concert, I took a moment to check her Snap score and noticed that it had been rising during her stated work hours. Additionally, I could determine that she wasn't at her work near our college campus, but rather was at a restaurant in the city, thanks to the maps on Snapchat. My roommate and I made the decision to check out what was going on in the restaurant rather than attending the event. She was obviously out on a date with a guy when we arrived. He had put his arms around her as they sat side by side, laughing and cuddling up to each other. They even shared a few kisses with us. When I discovered that what my roommate had been claiming was accurate, I was devastated. Throughout the year, she had been lying to me and cheating on me. She had been acting in a specific way for some time. I wasn't sure how long it had lasted. My roommate began searching through her social media accounts to try to identify the guy while we were waiting. After piecing together the details rather fast, he discovered that the man she was dating was actually her stepbrother. I was aware that her mother had gotten married somewhat quickly during our junior year's spring semester, and that her parents had divorced. I had never met her family, though. Her family never came for family weekend or anything like on college, and we hadn't been dating for that long. That she was having an affair with her stepbrother of all people astounded me. I vowed to approach my roommate the next day and call it quits on our relationship. It was him who persuaded me to approach the situation differently. He assisted me in organizing my plan to exact revenge on them both. I knew her family was coming in for our graduation ceremony, but they didn't come for brief visits. I claimed that up until that point, everything had been normal between us. Each year, our institution threw a big feast for the students and their families the day before our graduation ceremony. My girlfriend and I intended to go to that event with our families so that we could all get to know one another. At first, everything was going great. To be honest, I was drinking a little too much wine, but everyone was getting along just fine. There was a live microphone on the room's stage since the university president was supposed to speak during the dinner. I walked over to the microphone since I was starting to feel a little more confident. Although the faculty members around were a little taken aback, they didn't immediately stop me. Most likely, they ought to have. I began by expressing my gratitude to every one of my classmates for completing the year and graduating. I turned to face my girlfriend, and as I was talking, a lot of heads turned to stare at her. It felt like I was simply raving about how beautiful she was at first. I went on to say that I was taken aback to see her out on a date with her stepbrother. When I mentioned that, there was silence in the room. Everyone was realizing how serious what I'd stated was. Denying it, both of them were shaking their heads. I told him how I had witnessed them sharing a kiss and how she had been cheating on me with him all year. Many were taking out their phones to record what I was saying, but before I could get into many of the specifics, one of the faculty members moved me away from the microphone. She was attempting to respond to her stepfather's and mother's frequent questions, though. My parents dragged me out of the room and questioned me about why I would make her feel so uncomfortable. I was merely giggling when I finally left. Later that evening, I received a text from my girlfriend telling me how badly I had embarrassed her in front of the class. Actually, I didn't care. IU finally discovered why she had been lying to me and treating me like trash for the past whole year. I felt that she should be slightly ashamed of herself for everything. The day after our graduation ceremony, everyone was still raving about the meal. Throughout the whole ceremony, I could see that my partner was feeling ashamed and that others were chatting behind her back. I genuinely believe I let her down on that. Though that was a couple years ago, I've moved past it. I came to the realization that not everyone would be the same as she was. But I'm much more conscious of the telltale indications of infidelity now, and I watch out for them in my relationships.